Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining our webinar today. This is our Flex Modular Asset Framework, and I am Nicole Burns. I'm your moderator for today's webinar. I'm with Digital Pi, and we are a Marketo partner working with some of the largest clients establishing the best practice framework, which we call the gold standard. This has enabled our clients to become increasingly successful in their demand gen practices, hence driving overall revenue. And for today's webinar, how you can interact with us is that you could submit questions to the right side of your screen in your GoToWebinar panel. And after the session, after our demo today, we'll do a Q&A session. And then also after the webinar today, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with the recording. And for today's agenda, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Dave Roberts, along with and he'll be going over our Flex framework for our landing pages and our email 2.0. As soon as we're done with that, we'll answer your questions. Dave Roberts, who is our speaker today, specializes in design and development and has been crafting and refining systems of communication, workflow, and experience for the last decade. Us here at Digital Pi call Dave our Marketo Design Studio Ninja, with specialties in coding, troubleshooting, optimizing, and developing responsive frameworks for turnkey marketing assets in Marketo Design Studio. Our clients love working with Dave. And as a summary for today's webinar, we're changing up design and putting you in control. Through our experience working with the best clients across the globe, the Flex framework provides a different breed of design studio assets. We will demonstrate how this framework will empower you by reducing the time and effort required to produce new assets start to finish. We'll cover drag and drop to Marketo email victory without coding. We'll show you how to save time creating Marketo emails and landing pages using one scalable template. And we'll show you how to easily customize to your branding guidelines. I'll let Dave take it from here.
Hey, thanks a lot, Nicole. That was a rock star introduction. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the team, as well as Digital Pi standing behind me. This is definitely not a one. I was just looking through the guest list, and I've got to say I'm pretty floored. I saw some big names and some really high caliber companies, and it's I'm living the dream. I'm beside myself right now at the opportunity to have a chance to present something I'm really passionate about to you guys. So thank you very much for being here. I really hope to show you something that maybe you haven't seen before, or at least something that sparks a thought for you that we can talk some more about afterwards. Without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the framework here. So a little backstory on Flex. We work with a lot of clients in a lot of situations, and as consultants, we're looking for ways always to streamline and deliver faster results that are a little more long-standing. And the Flex framework has been our approach to that with asset design. Now, admittedly, if this was hypothetically your first webinar and you were showing something that you were really passionate about and this was the landing page template that you opened, you might just freak out a little bit. The trick here is that it's really quick because we've only got 2 sentences to edit and that's done. But if I left it there, you guys would probably be mad at me. So this is only where we'll start and we'll move on from there. The Flex framework is built on the landing page side. We've applied it we've applied Bootstrap to the framework to give it that scalable and responsive design. So we've taken what's already available, moved that into Marketo, and used that so that as you drag and drop elements into here, you've got that responsive Bootstrap element. If you're not familiar with it, there's documentation. Bootstrap is a free resource at getbootstrap.com. I'd recommend checking it out. And that's what we use on the landing page side to handle all the responsive side. Now, Bootstrap is not super familiar for a lot of marketers the way that it is for creative and development-minded people. So what we've done to help illustrate that and kind of get on the same page is created this easy editor overlay for the landing page interface. So turning this on is going to help highlight the different sections of the framework here, a lot in the same way that Marketo does when you roll over the sections, except that it's going to call out every section that you can edit. And you'll notice there's also another section sandwiched in the middle here that we couldn't see before, but now it's on my radar, and I know that I've got some room to add a form there. So what we're looking at here, up at the top, you'll notice that this ruler popped in, and this is the basic Bootstrap column ruler. So Bootstrap is a 12-column grid, which is each column is represented by a blue box here. So this section here could be thought of as a 12-column section, a full-width section. And they can be divided up between a half a page would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 6-column section. So that's the essential framework. If you can count to 12, you're in really good shape with this. That's the most difficult part of rearranging the layout here. These boxes are helped to design to give you a visual cue of how your layout is responding and where the division starts and ends. For example, it might be hard to imagine that this section goes all the way to the edge of the page because your content stops short. So this is something that we've plugged in here on top of the landing page interface to really make it a lot easier for you to identify the sections that you're editing in. Now, dotted lines are nice and solid lines are nice, but it wasn't quite enough to communicate. So we've also gone the extra mile to add a few little icons in the top here that let you know where you're at. This is row 1, column 1. This is our header. When you click on these icons, we played a game of what if and what would you like to see. And we imagined that perhaps you could have some sort of baked-in support here that would offer the user some convenient, easy plug-in way to bring content in. And our solution to that is the Blocks module library, which we'll get into in just a minute. But I wanted to point out that those are here. This one is a direct link to the Blocks library itself, whereas this one can give you some documented support. Another piece of the Easy Editor interface that we've added is this tags editor. You flip the switch to turn it on, and this is to really humanize the template. If you don't think like a designer or a coder, sometimes thinking in terms of rows and sections, editable text and editable form is a little bit easier to digest. So if you're really in the weeds and lost on this thing for where you're at and what you're editing, this really helps to bring some of that into your view and hopefully close up that gap between the designer, developer, and the practitioner that's looking for the copy paste and you need it to go, or you'd like to learn, but you could use a few guides along the way. So this turns on and off. I generally don't edit with the tags on unless I'm really lost and looking for something, but I'll edit with my outlines on here. So I'll flip that back off. And the next thing that I wanted to point out is the structure of each of these sections. You'll notice there's a top content section, there's a form in the middle, and then there's a bottom content section. This basic pattern will be repeated throughout the template, you'll notice, and this gives you the opportunity to add a form anywhere within your layout and add content above or below that as we go. So to really dive into the framework here, we'll switch into the variables column and scroll up to the top. The first feature here is custom CSS. One of the requests that we've gotten a lot is I'd like to be able, without affecting the template, to add some CSS code that's just going to style elements on this page rather than every page built on this template. This allows you to copy-paste CSS code directly from the landing page experience onto the template level, and it's only going to affect the landing page, which the code is written on here. So for example, you could change all of your paragraph text to color of red. And these are little snippets that you could have saved or put away. Sometimes they're quick fixes that we can go in and make for you so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And this little gadget here has actually saved us a lot of time in moving forward and being able to do that one little one-off thing that you need to change about your template, but you don't want a new template or you don't want to recreate the template. So this provides a little interface there. It's a little on the techie side, but the developers in the audience should appreciate that. The next piece here is adding a background image to my row. I've got a cheat sheet with some of my URLs on it that I'll just copy paste into the editor here, but you'll notice I'm just copy pasting in a URL. This is an image I've got hosted in our Marketo instance. And it's going to bring in this picture of the clock that you guys may be familiar with from the webinar. Now, the problem that I have here and the problem that a lot of our clients run into is, hey, I want to grab this image that goes with all of this other stuff that I'm using, but it doesn't exactly fit into my layout that I've got on my template here. Granted, it's only 2 sentences right now, but I'd really like for this section to be more fitted, and I'd like to be able to visually do that. So you guessed it, the very next thing that we set up is a variable to affect the minimum height of this row 1, section 1. So I'll change that to 300 here, and that'll increase the size of my row. There we go. Now we're starting to see the background image a little bit more. The next piece that usually drives me crazy about layout is when stuff gets too close to the top here. I think this is looking a little bit tacky, and I'd really like to do something about it. The very next variable that we've got set up addresses just that. So you start to get the feel that these things are kind of set up in a logical order, that as you work through the landing page experience as you're creating it, the next step is somewhat suggestive of the next step in the design process. That's how we've tried to be mindful in laying this out. So to increase the padding here, I'd simply change 0 pixels to 30. For example, you could go more or less. That'll do for the sake of example. And you'll notice this adds 30 pixels to the top, and it's also adding 30 pixels to the bottom, which you can't see now because we've got the minimum width set. But if I were to, for instance, take this back down to zeros, you'd be able to see that it's going to hold that 30 pixels at the bottom there. I like that a lot better at 300, so I'll reset it. The next piece of that I'm going to show you guys is really fundamentally one of the most significant parts of the Flex framework. So a request that we got, which at first was like, yeah, it'd be nice if it could do this, but they don't. And I love to hear things like that. Is, you know, Dave, it'd be great if we could have a landing page and just decide how many columns we had. Sometimes we need 2, sometimes we need 3, sometimes we need 1, sometimes we need 4 in really weird cases. But we don't want to have a template for each one of those things. That gets kind of cumbersome, and making changes and going back to get new templates and editing all of that gets to be a little confusing. So the approach that we took to solve that issue with the Flex framework is to really dig in and say, well, let's begin with the basics. Let's give you guys the opportunity and make it very easy to go from 1 to 4 sections in any row. The way that we've done that is to create this variable here for row 1, the number of sections, and you simply enter a number between 1 and 4. In this case, I'll go up to 4 to demonstrate moving in the additional columns. These next 4 pieces are related to the Bootstrap Ruler at the top here and control the width of each of the sections. So row 1, section 1, highlighted here, is set to 12 columns wide. Row 1, section 2, row 1, section 3, and row 1, section 4 are all set to 3 columns wide. So you'll notice that these are smaller. Now this allows me within a singular row to rearrange my sections. You'll notice I've actually got kind of a 2-row layout going here. I can also shrink this down to the size of 3. And so long as all of these add up to 12, again, that's the magic rule, you're going to be good and have one single layout that spans the whole width. To demonstrate that and how that works, I'll take this down to showing only 2 columns, 2 sections, my apologies. And we'll watch 3 and 4 disappear. Now this may be a little short for what I actually want in my layout. So I think I'd like to take these both up to be half of a page, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns for section 1 and 6 columns for section 2. And you'll watch as Marketo processes here. I keep an eye on this spinning icon here to see when it's done. You'll see that this snaps right in, and I've got my 2 rows of content, my 2 sections of content. Now, the next piece is a repeat of that, so you'll get an idea here for how the Flex framework is really the repeated modular pieces again and again. The framework is just kind of the skeleton that sits behind it. So we can add row after row. For the sake of the demo, we've got 2 rows. I'm going to turn my row 2 content on now that I'm thinking about using it. And you'll notice that row 2 comes in just like row 1. Row 2 has a section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4. Those sections have a top, a form, and a bottom. So you can continue to add rows to your layout on the template level here. We found that 2 with 4 sections is generally enough to cover most use cases. But for some people in some situations, it's a good idea to add a few more. Now, that's easy to do on the template level. It's copy and paste a row and change row 2 to row 3. It can be a find and replace feature. It's not technically super difficult to make that happen, and we've engineered it that way so that it's easier to move forward on a consistent framework. So with row 2 turned on, I'm going to bring in another image here to set this thing up. And just like we did with row 1, I'll need to set my minimum height because you'll see that my image is only the size of my content here. I'd like to set this one to be a little bit bigger, maybe 500, not 5,000. And then I'll also give it some padding on the top. I'll keep it 30 to be consistent. Now with this row, you'll notice when I brought it in, my light bulb is taking up a good section of my layout here, and I don't really want to put content on top of it. So what I'm going to do here is just visually spec it. I'm going to go down to using just 1 section here for the purposes of the demo. And then I'm going to eyeball this section against my ruler so that I keep it just short of my light bulb here. And this really allows you to, on the fly, make design decisions that are relative within the editing experience. So 6 wasn't quite enough here. I feel like maybe we could get up to 7 and get away with it. So let's try setting that to a 7 and see if we're still just short. That's perfect. That's what I like. So now we've got our layout established. Normally when you come into a landing page template, this is kind of where you'd be at without the interface on top. And you'd be looking to add content. Now in the content sections here, we've got the template set up to work with the different tags that are available within the Marketo editor experience. So that, for example, changing this from a paragraph to a heading 1, to a heading 2, and a heading 3, and so on, all make relevant changes within the framework here that respond to the digital pie branding that's on the template. So it makes content editing a lot easier because you don't have to worry about stripping code or strange inline styles here in the HTML. It's all very basic stuff, and we've moved the styling and the hard stuff onto the template for you so that the end user is presented with something that they can essentially copy, paste, and away you go. To get content in here a little bit faster, I might be crazy to think that I could build a whole landing page full of content in half an hour, and truthfully I may be. So what we did to make that a possibility was to create these blocks modules. So I'm going to go back and revisit this now. The blocks library is developed as a complement to the Flex framework. The idea here is that if we have a flexible framework, like I've just showed you, that has these sections that we can snap content into, wouldn't it be great if, like Legos, we had pieces that we could just snap into the framework that were copy, paste, and ready to go? This is exactly what the blocks library answers. I'll scroll through here to give you a basic feel of what's going on. We've got in each section, there's a unique identifier for the block itself. There's a name that helps you to understand what it is in human language. There's tags to show you what type of content is available, as well as a little general usage message as to where you might see this on a landing page. There's a copy-paste code block here that you can simply copy and paste into your layout, and there's a live preview here that's actually displaying this code and is responsive to the landing page if you wanted to see how it reacts. There's other basic blocks built in. You'll notice these are kind of the vanilla version using default content if you wanted to start from scratch. Here's an image module with a linked caption, an article title, a neat accordion, and a generic speaker section. Now, for us to increase our pace of acceleration, and for you as well, we can set up what we call branded blocks. I'm going to toggle off the stock blocks here and toggle on the Digital Pi branded blocks. Now, you'll notice we're looking at very similar blocks with the exception that these are branded. They contain very similar types of content, except that they're branded to the Digital Pi experience so that I can copy and paste these right into my layout. Now, this article block, you'll notice, has been placed inside of the accordion block here to create this feature of blog articles, one after another, that can simply be copied and pasted onto your landing page. So for the average marketer who needs a repeating type of interface like this to add to your landing page on the fly, it's as simple as copying this content here, coming back into your landing page, going into the HTML, and pasting it. Now you'll notice that this took the size of the container. It's responsive to the size of the container that it's in. And to highlight that a little bit, I'll go back to my section here and size it back down to 5 to show you how this thing pulls in with the frame that you put it in. So this helps you to be a little bit more fearless with your layout, and maybe it helps to illustrate how you can drop these blocks in here and be on your way without too much fuss. As I click on these things, you'll notice the light bulb in the background responds to the content, and that's one less thing that I've really got to worry about here. So I think that piece is looking pretty good. I'd like to put a headline message in here. So I'm going to grab this headline that I've got prepared in my block here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to get rid of what I had put in here and paste this. Now I'd like to come back up and include a few more blocks here. I'd like to continue the conversation with you guys, and we'll publish this page. This is a link to our LinkedIn page. To continue the conversation there, if there's anything that would make you guys do a cartwheel, somebody's ever told you that landing pages and emails couldn't do something, I'd really like to hear about that. Those are the types of things that deeply motivate me to work on and disprove. I really like to build functionality where none existed before. So please, if you have thoughts or comments, feel free to follow up, and I'll make sure that we get this in front of you guys with a link and an email. The final piece that I kind of wanted to show off in the landing page experience here is adding forms. So as I click into my form box here, I've got a sample form that I'm ready to use. And you'll notice that my form comes into the shape of the form box, the container that it's in. Again, it's 6. If this was out to 7, the form would stretch to that size. That stuff is built into the template level. So you're going to get responsive forms, whereas those aren't the native functionality straight out of the box for Marketo forms. So this kind of provides an overlay, one less thing for you to worry about in the future. In order to edit the forms and maybe style this, again, I don't like when it's really pressed up against the sides of my container here. I want to give that a little bit of breathing room. So we've got this variable here called form padding. And I can increase this. I'll kick it up to 30 just to keep it consistent across the board. And you'll see that that's going to add padding around my form from the landing page experience. So again, none of this, I don't have to go back to my designer, my developer, my template maker to make these types of changes. This stuff is all built in. And anywhere that you put a form on the page, likewise, if you were to put one in this box or this box, the same would be true. And you'd be able to adjust the padding this way. You can also adjust the form background color. So the box that's behind this, you can enter your hexadecimal code. This one you'll notice is a little bit different than the color picker option, and the reason for that is so that you can use RGB colors and alpha properties, not just the hexadecimal color. So for example, if you wanted to do a transparent white box, you could use a 50% opacity white. This is just a different naming structure for the color code. And this allows you to get some of that opacity going on in the background there, whereas the hexadecimal does not. So that quickly is how you can plop a form in there and be on your way if perhaps I wanted to provide a little section here for some follow-up. So I hope in seeing this, it's given you guys an idea of what's possible within the framework and how easy it is to kind of iterate and move forward with this. I'd really look forward to hearing your feedback. From the landing page experience, I'm going to jump into the email experience here and show you how we start with the Flex email framework. Now, more than once I've had emails come through that say, Dave, the template is empty, there's nothing on it, and I've got to get this out. It's got to go. I'm under pressure here. I've got half an hour, and I need to work fast, and there's nothing on the template. I'm freaking out a little bit. That is a testament to how new and different the Flex framework and Email 2.0. Kudos to Marketo and really upping the bar there in terms of what you're capable of doing. I'm now more comfortable in the email editor experience, and I prefer it to the landing page editor experience. It's more user-friendly, from my opinion. And we've done our best, just like you saw with the landing page framework, to add a layer on top of the email experience to make that even easier for you guys. So the big difference in Email 2.0 is the module layer that you can drag and drop into your layout. You'll notice the way that we do modules is a little bit different than perhaps some of the other applications that you've seen, which have sophisticated blocks of content with 2-column, 3-column, everything all kind of sandwiched into one module. That's where we started with Email 2.0, but what we found again and again is that just keeps you coming back for a new template and looking for a new design every time that you need to redesign a module or make a change to a module. So we blew that up and dove a little bit deeper on it, and it came back to the surface with this idea of using the very basic elements to create an email. So the way that you go about this and the way that you think about this may be a little bit different, but stick with me. I'm hoping it's going to make a little bit of sense. To begin, the first thing that you're usually going to want to put in your email is your logo. So I'm going to drag and drop this image module. Now you'll notice that it's way bigger than it probably needs to be, and also that it's got a note that it ought to not be wider than 590 pixels. If it is, you need to set the width to 590 pixels. This is a visual reminder. Here's where you could set the width. Now, again, I'm going to just paste in a URL that I've grabbed from my cheat sheet here of the Digital Pi logo. Looks like I'm within my safe zone there. We're under 590. Although I think I'd like this to be about 60 pixels, so I'm going to change the height there. I'm going to set my alt text to digital pie. This is a good idea for SEO and optimizing through Google and other search engines. Always a good idea. Try not to leave that blank. And then I've already got the link URL pointing to digitalpie.com to save me some time. And you'll notice the styles are locked here, and that's so that you cannot go in and make a change that's really going to destroy this thing. The only dangerous way of using the image module now is if you have an image which is greater than 590 pixels, which is why we've included that warning by default on the module. Otherwise, you can safely add your image, resize it, add your alt text, and swap it out. Within the image module, you'll notice there are local variables set up for this that help to control the background color of the module. So, for example, if I wanted to switch this to be black instead of white, I could adjust my color settings here for the top, for the bottom, and for the background of this module. Now, since I've got a white, a JPEG here, I'm going to want to switch this back to white so that it looks good. Ideally, you would use an image that didn't have the background color going on there. But I wanted to demonstrate how you could change the color of a row on the fly there to dress that up if you wanted to do something different to highlight this piece is built into all of the modules. Another thing that seemed incredibly difficult to do in the past and to get right in every browser and every email client is to add space to the top of a section. To tackle that, we've created this top and bottom space variable that you can drop down with some preset options from 5 to 30. We'll set the top to 30 here and add that space and then set it back just to demonstrate. Another variable that we've built in is aligning the image. Right now it's set to the left. You can adjust the image to the center or to the right. In this case, it makes a lot of sense to leave it to the left. And then you'll also notice that we've built in an image class here. This handles how this gets displayed on mobile for clients that read responsive design. And you'll notice it's set to mobile center now. So although I've aligned my image to the left, if I go into the mobile experience, it jumps to the middle. This allows me to either make my image full when we go to mobile, centered when we go to mobile, or nothing at all, which in this case will retain the original alignment of left. Those are the basic breakdown of the variable components for the module itself and a few of the specific pieces for the image module. With that being said, I'll drag in my banner image. I'll slide back into desktop mode here. The banner image, you'll notice, is set to 620 pixels, which is our working width of our layout here. There's 10 pixels to a side for the margins, so 640 total. For this banner, I'm going to also copy in an image that I've got on my cheat sheet. You'll notice a difference here in the banner module, however. I cannot set the dimensions. The dimensions are set for me, and they're always going to be full width. This is so that you don't have to worry about where or how big your banner is going to be, with the exception of it being too small. You wouldn't want to use an image that was only 300 pixels, but it's safe to use one which is entirely way too big for an email, but that's what you got, and it's last minute. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can safely do it now. I would try and aim for something that was as close to 620 as possible. Again, I'm going to add my alt text here and point a link back to Digital Pie. And you'll notice again my styles are locked here, and that's so that nothing gets messed up and I can trust that this image is going to work when I put it in there. So I'll swap this one out now. I've got a nice banner image. To quickly walk through a few of the modules here, I've shown you two of the images. Next, we kind of get into the body content section where You've got a heading 1, a heading 2, and a heading 3, a lot like HTML elements, as well as body text, and then a small, like a copyright or just a small note section. We'll begin with adding a heading 1 in here, and I'll walk you through. All of these text modules have very similar variables that help you to control them. The part that I'm most excited about, and I think most people get really excited about with this email, is that when you click in to edit this, hallelujah, there's no HTML here in the source editor. You are free to do this and delete and make sure you go into your HTML and have absolutely everything removed and not ever have to worry about that. We've tried to remove all of that from your experience so that you can add your messaging in here as easily as possible. I've got some messaging that was sent over that I'll be using to create this. So thanks for attending. I'll add that as my headline there. Again, you'll notice I just copy pasted. Another way that you can go about doing this if you're using Chrome is using this paste as plain text function here, and that's going to add that right in for you without having to worry about the HTML getting wonky. Now, I don't like that this is left aligned here. I'd like to move it more to the middle. So similarly to the image module, I'll walk you through the text, the heading module here. We've got the background colors and the top spacing. Perhaps we'll add a little bit here. We've got the central background color and the alignment. There it is. I'd like to change that to center. I'm good with the color. I'm good with the size and the line height of my heading. I don't need to change any of those. They're branded. It's set to bold. And my font family is Roboto Slab, which is what at Digital Pi we use for our main headlines. So all of that's looking good to me. I'll add a little spacing to the bottom to set it off here, and we'll call that a headline. After that, I'd like to add in my headline 3 and display a details line here. That's perhaps a little bit less pronounced. Again, I'll paste in as plain text. Save that. I'd like to center this piece. And that's looking good. Snaps right in. I'll add a horizontal rule. And now I'd like to go back and reuse this heading 1 module. I'd like to add in the Flex framework details here. So again, I'll copy paste and save. That's not looking as great as I would like it to. I think I'd like it to match this banner so it kind of goes along. This one I think I would. First of all, I'd like to center it, but I think I'd also like to make it that nice teal color. So I'm going to pull that branded color in here and change the color of my headline. Get back on track here and center this guy. Now you'll notice that here my headline is a little bit too big. It's a very long title and it's breaking the line here, and I don't want that to be happening. So what I'm going to do in this case is decrease my font size and my line height to a realistic size to get this to look nice and aesthetically pleasing. I'd like to move it down a little bit from my horizontal rule, so I'll add a little bit of space here to the top just to set that off. And that looks good to me. Again, we'll bring in another heading 3 module. Now I'm going to duplicate this one just to show off some Marketo functionality here, because this is just really neat. And if you haven't played with it this way, this really speeds things up for me. After cloning that, I'm able to come back into my content section here and drag and drop this down below my heading, rather than dragging in a new module and resetting any of the details that I did. That makes it a lot faster for me just to come back to my cheat sheet here, copy my my text information and paste it in the same without having to worry about centering this, or if, for example, I had changed the color. those kinds of changes would come with it. So Marketo, thank you very much for putting that piece in there. That makes life a lot easier. And to everybody watching, if you're not doing that, this will definitely help speed up your process. The next piece I'll put in here for the demonstration is a body paragraph to let you know we're building a on-demand email here to follow up with you. Paste as plain text. I think I'd like to move this piece to the middle as well. And finally, the piece that I get really excited about that our clients have had a great experience with is this easy editor button. So the most hair-raising part of email design, in my experience and in working with our clients, has been in dealing with buttons and getting them to work across every different platform. Every time you change the text, it seems like you delete some important style or something that's critical to making the email actually work, and you kind of trade that word that you added for functionality, and then nobody wins. So what we've done is completely remove the option. You don't even have the option. I'm clicking like crazy now into this module, and I can't get in there to edit this button. And that's because we have taken everything that you would need to edit about a button and moved it over here to the variables column. So it's a little bit easier and safer for you to edit. Just like you've seen before, there's an alignment here, so I'd like to put my button in the center. I'd also like to give it some top space. So you'll notice the nature of the Flex framework is modular, and a lot of these handles are going to repeat from module to module and have slightly different content handles on the inside. From the email here, we can change the background color of the button. I like this orange, it's consistent. We can change the vertical padding. Now this isn't actual padding, and it's not a good idea to use padding on buttons, but it communicates the idea that you can adjust the top and bottom spacing here above your text on the button. And the same is true of the horizontal padding, which is not padding, but can be thought of that way. That looks good for now. There's also a built-in border button corner radius where you can crank this thing up and get a little roundness on your corners. We use these nice sharp square corners, but if for your brand you use rounded corners, it's that easy to make the change. Or if you decide that for a specific asset you'd like to use rounded corners, it's that easy to make that change on the fly. This sets the text color of the button here. It's currently white. I can add a link right here into the button. I can point this thing again to Digital Pi. And without needing to code anything, it's going to take my link and add it into the button there so that when I click it, I can also adjust the button text from this interface. And this might say go to Digital Pi. And again, along with the same as you've seen with the font handles, we can adjust the font size, the font weight. It's got options, bold, normal, and everything in between. I can adjust the font family on the fly and the color as well as the spacing on the bottom here. I think because it's a button, I'd like to give it a little breathing room. And then we'll throw a footer on this guy, and I think that this is pretty close to being ready for production. My process, I'd send this out to our proof team to evaluate along with a litmus test that helped them see how it would render in every platform that's available for us to test on in litmus. I hope that this piece, at very least, has opened your eyes a little bit to a different way to approach email design. And a lot of the things that exist in the framework already are pieces that we've incorporated in ideas and feedback that we've gotten from all the amazing clients that we serve every day. So I hope this sparks a thought for you guys, and that you're able to bring some feedback and some ideas to the table to kind of hash out. From here, I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. Again, if you guys would like to use the question panel there in the GoToWebinar dialog, I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole and allow her to take it from here.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to answer any questions. I know that we saw a hand raised from Sid. Sid, if you'd like to type in your question, we can definitely answer it for you. James Chung is asking us a quick question. Is there drag and drop functionality for LPs similar to how email has it?
My answer to that is not yet. I hate to say no, because no would have been the appropriate response to drag and drop email just a few years ago. My thinking is that Marketo is all over that, and the success of email 2.0 is going to spill over into landing pages. But as is, there's not a drag and drop feature for landing pages. That's a great question. That's something that we developed the blocks library to help supplement, to act like the module library, so that for landing pages you can copy and paste. It's not exactly drag and drop. But I'm confident that that's not too far around the corner from a technical perspective. No pressure, Marketo, but I would really like to see that as well. That's a really good question. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dave. Thanks, James, for asking the question. Also, we have a question from Karen on how much time does the Flex template save your team?
It depends upon your process. For us, I use it frequently. I can give you an honest testimonial here. I use the email piece to set up the emails that go out for our blog weekly. And what used to be about a 2.5-hour editing process, I can get through now by copy and pasting, even from content from our website into the email, if you can imagine that, in about 15 or 20 minutes. So my weekly savings on that is a few hours. Again, once these things are set up, our blog is a regular publication, so it's although the content is not laid out exactly the same every time, it's a fairly familiar framework, so that I've been able to speed up a little bit. But if I had to, and when I have to, create a brand new template, we used to be in the 4 to 5 hour window for creating a new template, but using, and by template I mean a new layout with new content arranged differently than some other variation. But now we're with the Flex template, I'm able to do that a lot faster. I like to say an hour because I like to troubleshoot and fuss with stuff and play around 6 columns, 7 columns, 2 rows, 3 rows. It's the designer in me, and I like to have fun playing with this stuff. So I would say in a hurry I could get it done in about half an hour and save myself a boatload of time. But generally, in taking my time, it probably saves me 3 to 4 hours compared to our previous process per asset.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. We have another question from Sid. How do you get started using this framework? Where does one download this framework, etc.?
So the Bootstrap framework that the landing page, the Flex framework is built on top of, is free. You can get that at getbootstrap.com. The Flex framework itself is something that we would go in and install for you in Marketo and set up with your branding guidelines. The way that looks for most of our clients is we do a kind of audit where we look at your existing assets, your landing pages, your emails, what you're using now, what you're looking forward to the future to use, what you'd like to get rid of, and maybe a few things that people told you couldn't do before that we could make possible in the process. And we put all those things on paper together and outline the different blocks and modules and sections that you'll need. We build those things and install them and then hand it off to you to use and build, and hopefully in the relationship, when you guys need new stuff or you've got this wild new idea for something like an HTML-free button, you can come back to us, and that's something that we can work back into the framework as a whole, and everybody wins.
We have another question from Mark. Can you add a URL link to any content or image blocks on the fly?
Yes, you can. The Marketo on the landing page and on the email side, the image modules are set up. They're built in. It's Marketo native functionality. to be able to add a URL. On the landing page side, when you've got the image selected, and this isn't a Flex thing, you can do it anytime, you can use the link icon to add a link to that image. And on the landing or on the email side, the image modules themselves are set up to have links or the option for a link by default, so that all you would have to do there is paste in your URL, which would be similar to the landing page experience. You'd paste it into the link spot when you highlighted your image.
Thanks, Dave. Another question from Bob. The big takeaway is that this drastically reduces the number of required templates. Is this true?
This is, yes. I have lots of experience going through different clients' Marketo instances. Being a consultant, we get to see not just one way of doing it, but lots of ways of doing it. And one of the things that really kind of gave me a twitch was seeing a folder with a dozen or 20 different email templates, especially email templates, because you need one that's got 2 speakers and one that's got 3 speakers and one that's got 4 rows and so on. And it definitely, the whole idea, one of the things that I'm really passionate about with this is that it consolidates all of that. It gives you one framework that you can begin to develop upon and become familiar with, and not a new template that your team has to become familiar with every time you change the layout or you refresh the brand. All of this functionality, just like with Marketo, stays with you and doesn't change, and you can change what's on top of that. It's very similar to buying a house. You could repurpose the room by painting the walls. You don't need to go buy a new house. That's kind of what Flex makes possible for you. That's a great question. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we got another one. Why not just use the free Marketo templates?
The first thing is functionality. You won't find the same functionality built into the free Marketo templates. The framework is the biggest difference there that you're going to see. Some of the Marketo templates may be built on or with Bootstrap, but what we've done is a super deep dive into specifically asset generation. My background is in design and coding, and I've been focused on this piece exclusively, creating these templates since about Summit last year, really polishing this idea. So what we've got in-house is kind of somebody in me that's been focused on this to really build out and improve upon what Marketo's kind of putting out of the box, to give your organization a head start in creating something that sticks, that you don't have to, again, keep going back to a template library every time that you want to change your look or feel.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Okay, the questions are definitely coming in now. We have another one from Sarah, and so are there prerequisites for getting the Flex template? For example, branding guide.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we look for, and one of the things we'll follow up with you if you guys are interested in setting this up. The branding guideline is going to look, it can be as simple, and we've had it go this way before, where people say, we really don't have that, but if you go to our website, that's exactly what it should look like. We can extract from your website your colors, your font sizes, the relevant brands guidelines that we need to get that stuff to match up, and put all of that in front of you if you don't have it. If you do have it, it would be great to get colors, fonts, sizes, any sort of requirements that you guys have, both for landing pages and emails, up front, and then we design to those specifications. So Flex is kind of the framework. It doesn't matter so much to the framework what color the walls are, but it matters tremendously to the client. You know, that's what lets you make the space your own. So we've separated those two things so that we can bring that in when you have it, and it's easy also to go get that stuff if you don't have it readily available. But yeah, that's the kind of thing we would need.
Great, thank you. Another question from Sid. Do you guys use Litmus and Browser Stack to test the generated email or landing pages? If so, are there any email clients or mobile devices that consistently have rendering issues?
Oh boy, That's a really big and really good question. I will give a boatload of compliments to the Litmus team right now. I could not do my job. I could not be showing you guys this without being that guy that sends 100 different tests of every possible situation to Litmus in both the builder and the email send part of it, to really dig in and see what works between this platform and that platform. On the email side, one of the really big differences that's kind of buried in the technical details of Flex is that it uses a different approach to the framework. It's built to be responsive to Android and Google on mobile first, and then respond out from there, which is the opposite approach that most templates and most companies that are building templates use, which is you start with the desktop and you respond on your way down to mobile. Bootstrap works on that mobile first framework, and so we carried that over into the Flex email framework to help address stuff like that. So the problem child there typically is Gmail on the mobile Android devices specifically. And so we've designed with those in mind so that we can hit those boxes. There's a competing condition between Android for mobile and Android for desktop. And there are a few trade-offs in terms of layout things that you can and we don't advise that you do and when setting up your email. But I'm not happy, and I wouldn't be putting this in front of you unless every single option being turned on in Litmus sent me back something that I was happy with and didn't feel like it was broken. So that's at the top of my list actually. And Ryan is actually a very big proponent of test first and then send the results. So yeah, I use Litmus a lot. And Gmail and Outlook are probably the biggest troublemakers there, if that helps to answer that question.
Thanks, Dave. So our last question, did you guys add those modules to the Marketo designer interface?
The modules, I'm assuming you're talking about on the landing page side, like the easy editor stuff. That's actually built into the template, but it displays on top of it. It cooperates with it. It's Marketo native. And that's another big part of the framework, is that it's built upon Marketo, for use in Marketo. So it really communicates well with this. It's not something else that we're trying to stitch together. It's built for that specific purpose. On the landing page side, those easy editor stuff is just a layer that's splashed on top of the GUI, the graphical user interface that Marketo presents. And then on the email side, we haven't done anything to dress up those modules. That's the native email 2.0 experience. So kudos to Marketo for nailing that one again.
Yeah, and one more question. Sorry, this one just came in, if that's okay. From James Chung. Is the Flex framework built by Digital Pi?
Yes and no. The the essence of it, I would say, is Bootstrap and Marketo and all of our clients around the world built Flex. We happen to be the hands and the coders that facilitated that, but it's not our proprietary code. It's Bootstrap, which is the most popular framework in the world. It's not our CMS. It's Marketo, which is the best marketing software in the world. We've simply taken those two things and put them together to make life a little bit easier to do the best with what you've got.
Great. Well, I think we're just about over time, or I guess actually 1 minute over. So I know everybody's got to get back to their day-to-day. So if anybody would like to follow up with us or have a discussion around these, please reach out to me, Nicole Burns. You can reach me at nicole@digitalpi.com. We'll also send a recording of this webinar as well, so feel free to share it. We'd love to hear some feedback as well. And we hope you guys have a great day. And thanks again for attending today's webinar. Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate it.
And thanks again for your time. You guys are the best. Keep living the dream.
Okay, bye, everybody.